Welcome, everybody. My name is Andrew Patricio. Over the last 20 years that I've been educating, training, and motivating small business owners, I've found that often somebody with great leadership can take an average business and make it an excellent business. And some people are really good at leading people, and others are not that good. And what I'm trying to identify in this presentation is what makes these people unique, what makes these people different, what makes them special, and more importantly, what can you and I learn from these people? Because we want to become great leaders. Think of a leader as somebody like a conductor that basically delegates, manages, and inspires people to generate revenue for the business. And that's ultimately what a leader does. And leaders are people that have a very clear idea of what they want to do. One of the leaders that I know that I work with on a regular basis is quite inspirational because his job is really to decide the direction of the company. And he's got a very clear idea of what he wants to achieve. And I think that is the starting point of leadership. When you decide, this is what we want to build. This is our vision. This is our ultimate goal. This is the picture that I see that we want to build. And leaders have great vision. And I've seen it in many different industries, whether it's in business, whether it's in politics, whether it's whatever it is, a leader with a very powerful vision inspires people and motivates people and brings them along. And that is really our job as leaders. Our job is to come up with a vision and then get our team behind the vision. Because at the end of the day, you cannot build a business on your own. You need good people. So you've got to convince yourself, first of all, of what the vision is for your company, and then you've got to sell this idea. You've got to get your team behind your vision. They've got to believe in it. They've got to work in that same direction. Involvement of your employees, especially in small business, I think is key. We've got to make sure that we get our employees involved so they believe in the vision and they work in the same direction as us. So get your team behind you is how we do it. You know, there's been some great leaders, and I was lucky enough to be in South Africa in 1994 and 1992 when Nelson Mandela he was released from prison, and secondly, he ruled the country. And it's very, very interesting of what an inspirational leader he was. First of all, a forgiving person, and secondly, what an inspirational leader he was. And I think if you read this quote, it shows you what he thought about leadership, or the way he thought about leadership. It is better to lead from behind and to put others in front, which I agree, especially when you celebrate victory when nice things occur. You take the front line when there's danger, then people will appreciate your leadership. And I think that is such a great way of thinking it, is that when there are issues, when there are problems, that's when you go to the front. Otherwise, your job is to sit behind and encourage and motivate people. I think just such a great way of thinking about it. So once you've decided exactly what your vision is, the next part of leadership is to set yourself specific goals. And I think this is something that make great leaders, because they're very, very specific and they're very detailed about what they want to achieve. They ensure that their goals are measurable. They ensure that they're realistic. And they always set times or dates to their specific goals. And I encourage you to do the same thing, that in business, we need to have a clear idea of what our goals are. They need deadlines, they need to be specific, they need to be realistic, and then people are going to follow them. But that's our job. As leaders, that's our responsibility. We're the one that set goals. We're the one that set benchmarks. We're the ones that set targets and objectives for our business to achieve. And this is what makes a great leader. She's goal-oriented. She knows exactly what she wants. Just think of some of the most successful businesses you know, or think of some of the most successful people you know. And you'll realize that a lot of these things you'll be able to relate to. Because leaders are people that take risks. They're often different. They often don't conform. They often want to try different things. And this is the strength of a leader, is that he or she is prepared to take risks, to try new things, to take the road less traveled. I didn't want to say that, but I thought that's maybe the most appropriate way to say it. So we need to learn to take risks. The second thing is we need to be patient. I think one of the biggest challenges we have as business owners is often we're impatient. And I'm always amazed that when I speak to young business owners, they speak about things like branding and the value of their brand and stuff. But really, at the end of the day, I think all of these things take time. To build a great business takes time. You're not going to do it over the night. It takes a long time. So as a business owner and as a leader, we need to be patient because it takes time to develop things. And I would encourage you, if you want to make massive change in a business, it usually takes about, I would say, 3 years to really get the results that you want. You start off with a vision, write down your goals, and then give yourself a period of time to achieve it. So take risks and be patient. The other thing that great leaders do is learn by walking about. I don't know if any of you are old enough, but if you remember a guy called Tom Peters, and he wrote the book In Search of Excellence. And it was very, very interesting because one of the concepts he came up with in that was learn by walking about. And I think as business owners or as leaders, doesn't matter what business we run, doesn't matter how many employees we have, but really spending time with them, spending time with our customers, spending time with our suppliers is something that we need to do on a regular basis so that we can understand our business, so we can understand our people, so we can understand our suppliers. But really, at the end of the day, we've got to be with our people. We've got to be listening to them. We've got to be coaching them. We've got to be encouraging them. We've got to be mentoring them. So leadership is about walking around, about working with people, getting involved in the nuts and bolts of running the business. These are key things. And I often speak to business owners, especially ones that are, I would say more successful, and sometimes they'll say, they don't feel like they're working as hard as they did when they started. And I said to them, well, maybe that's the way it should be, is that as your business develops, you become more of a leader, you become more of a coach, more of a mentor, actually than doing the stuff. But that doesn't stop you from walking around and speaking to people on a regular basis. And the fourth thing, and I think is the key thing in any leadership, is to listen. As leaders, we need to listen to our customers on a regular basis by asking them questions. We need to listen to our employees on a regular basis because they often have more interaction with our customers, and we need to listen to our advisors. This is what makes a great leader. Somebody that is humble, somebody that listens, somebody that understands that they do not know everything, and this is why they have to be good listeners. So taking risks, being patient, learning by getting involved and walking about, and listening, I think are 4 key characteristics of successful business owners. You know, in 1989, I was lucky enough to meet Mother Teresa, and it was a very, very interesting meeting for me. I was working on a Saturday morning, and my mother was the representative for Mother Teresa in Southern Africa, and she came and visited me at my workplace, or the business I was running at the time. And I remember seeing this small little woman, tiny woman, and I just looked at this woman and thought, it's amazing some of the things she had achieved in her life. Some of the people she'd helped, so the organization she'd built, this tiny human being. And I think this is a very important thing when we're working with people, that we understand the value of saying really nice things. And think of yourself, even as you were growing up, there were family members, and there were some of those that were really maybe strict and harsh with you, and there were others that just said really nice things to you, you know, about your abilities, about how hard you were trying, and things like that. These were the people you really liked. And I think when it comes to employees, it's so important that we understand that kind words are short and easy to speak, but the echoes are truly endless. And I think this is important. You know, a kind word with somebody that's working with you on a daily basis just inspires and motivates them and makes them easier to manage. And if we understand that leading is about treating people really well, I think we're going to become much better leaders. The other thing I believe in is leading by example. You know, and often in the learning stages or the startup stages of a business, I think this is a key thing, that you've got to show your employees exactly what you mean when you say great customer service. You've got to educate them. You've got to train them. You've got to mentor them. You've got to guide them. This is what great leaders do. But you've got to understand that our employees, some of us that have kids, that they look up to us as an example. So if we're setting a bad example, you know what, they're not going to learn good things out of it. So just be very, very careful. You know, even in meetings with the employees, you know, complaining about customers and things like that really makes absolutely no sense. And I've heard this sometimes from business owners. You know, they're complaining about customers and the way it reacts, and I worry about that, because at the end of the day, they are the people that generate our revenue. They are the people that keep us in business. So if you want to become a great leader, lead by example. Show people. If you want people to smile, make sure you're smiling. If you want people to be friendly, make sure you're friendly. If you want people to be kind to others, make sure you're kind to others. And I think the example that we lead is key. And in some of the most successful businesses that I've seen over the years, leadership plays such an important part. We need to take responsibility for the good and the bad. And I think this was very clear early on when I mentioned the Nelson Mandela quote, and that is exactly what he says, is that, you know what, as leaders, we need to be on the front line. We need to take responsibility for good and bad. And how many times have you heard this? I'll give an example, and it happens to me regularly. I'll meet business owners, and if they've succeeded and they've built a great business, they tend to use the word I regularly. They'll say, I did this, and I worked hard, and I did my research, and I marketed, and that's why we are a successful business today. Whereas when you meet people that have failed in business, they tend to focus on reasons usually not related to them why they failed. So they'll say things like, you know what, the economy was bad, the industry was becoming very, very competitive, and this is what people focus on. So when we succeed, it's because we did something right. When we fail, it's somebody else's fault. And I think as a great leader, this is a key thing, is that we take responsibility for our successes, but also our failures. And I think this is something that makes a great leader, that admits their weaknesses and shows that they accept that failure is part of success. And I think this is so important that we understand this, that failure or failing is part of success in business. Because the more we fail, the more we learn. If we're not failing, we're often not learning. So let us lead by example. Let's take responsibility for the good and the bad, the good decisions and the bad decisions, because this is what business owners do. You know, one of the great leaders that I like out there, and I've never met Richard Branson, but my youngest son has, because he went to Neck Island to do some videos, and I follow him on social media. And I find that, I don't know if it's just what's on social media, but this guy seems to be such an inspirational leader. I mean, he's a billionaire, seems to be a nice guy, and he seems to inspire people. So, and this is his thoughts, which I think are so important, that leaders should be visible. Very much like I said earlier on, that we should be managed by walking about. Leaders need to be accessible. And I think this is so important that you as a leader are accessible to your employees, so you listen to them. Leaders need to be approachable and never stop learning. And this really is one of my favorite quotes, that if we want to become great leaders, we need to be visible, we need to be accessible, we need to be approachable, or humble is another word we can use, and we never stop learning. And remember, often we learn more from our mistakes than our successes. You know, so learn, don't be afraid to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Every single one of us makes mistakes. Actually, the more mistakes we make, the better. I really like this quote because when I look at this quote, I think of integrity. That's the word that comes to mind. And I think great leaders have integrity. And this is one of the big challenges we have in the world nowadays, is that leaders often don't care about the people. We see this in large organizations, and we see it in politics, and we see it in so many different situations. And I think this quote is something that all of us can live by. Leadership is doing what is right when no one is watching. And I think that is key in any business. You know, by treating people right, by paying them a fair wage, by making a profit but not overdoing it. These are the type of things that make great leaders. Really, it's about being honest, and really having integrity is what we want. I find that sometimes when we've put in leadership positions, or when some people are put in leadership positions, this almost goes to their head. You know, I was in the military for a couple of years, and it was amazing how a normal troop would one day, a normal soldier would get rank, and all of a sudden they'd become this different human being, and they wouldn't treat people with respect. And I think this is something that we've got to be very, very careful of when we're running a business, is that at the end of the day, we've got to realize we are dealing with humans that are just like us. They're insecure, they've got challenges. So you and I need to humanize the relationship. The way we humanize the relationship is by spending time with our employees. One of the businesses I ran years ago, in about 1994, 1995, was a company that supplied restaurants. And the one lesson I learned, which was one of the best things I did, I think, in that business, is that every morning I would have a meeting with every one of my employees in a group. And the objective was to see if there were any challenges, if they could identify any, but also just to see people's moods, people's approach, people's attitude. And I find that when you deal with problems immediately in a business, when you help people, it makes you a better leader. I can think of an example of one of my employees recently, maybe a year ago. I went to a meeting we were going to see a client. I met her downstairs, and I looked at her and I thought to myself, gee, there's something going on here. I don't know what it is, but I was really concerned. I was actually looking at her thinking, maybe you're on drugs or something. Anyway, but so this concern, this worried me a little bit. I didn't want to get too personal, but I remember going to the meeting and handling the meeting, going back to the office, and then speaking to her and saying, you know what, there's something wrong. I can see that there's something going on that you're not telling us about. And she said, nah, there's nothing really, whatever it is. But I thought, okay. And then later on, she came to me and said to me, well, this is the problem. I'm having a problem in my relationship, whatever it is. I went to the doctor. They gave me medication, for depression and things like that. And that's when I realized, so she wasn't drugged. She was on medication, I suppose the same type of thing. But she was on medication that her doctors had given her because she was having so many issues in her personal life. But only because I took the time to listen and took the time to ask, that I realized that this was one of the reasons she wasn't as productive as she regularly was. And I think it's really helped, because then once I understood what the problem was, we could deal with it. But it's about humanizing that relationship. I think we can be nice people and still build great businesses. Other things that make great leaders, and I've touched on this early on, but great leaders are honest. They're honest with their employees, they're honest with their customers, they're honest with their suppliers. And I think nowadays, there's a shortage of honest people. Just think of when you're dealing with large organizations, when you're buying product or service, how many times you get lied to. And if you speak to these managers or these leaders of these organizations, they won't call it lying. They'll call it marketing, they'll call it whatever, but they don't call it lying. But realistically, often, and I say this to business owners, imagine working in a big company nowadays where almost you expected to lie, because a lot of the things that they're saying are not true. And just be aware of this, that as a great leader in a small business, you don't want to be a liar. You want to be honest. You want to be honest to your customers. You want to be honest to your employees. This is what great leaders do. The other thing that we've got to learn to do, and I've seen a lot of business owners really struggle with this. They really struggle with this, and it's one of their challenges they face, is when they need to delegate. When I hear people saying things like, if I don't do things that don't get done properly, I really get concerned about this, because the only way we can develop and grow a business is by delegating. And when we delegate, we got to make sure that we delegate properly. This is how you grow. This is how leaders do it. We've got to make sure we're very clear what we want people to do, what the outcomes are. We set deadlines for them. But this is what great delegators do. And you've got to learn to delegate. This is the only way you can grow your business, is by delegating and getting other people to do the jobs that need to be done to build your business. So make sure that you learn to delegate. The other thing that leaders are great communicators. Often we're asked to speak to our employees. We're asked to present our proposals at meetings, so we've got to be good communicators. And we've got to communicate with our employees. We've got to tell them what's going on. We've got to share our vision. We've got to share our goals. We've got to share our objectives. we must learn to communicate. So great leaders are great communicators. Great leaders are confident too. You know, when that confidence that we have rubs off on our people, rubs off on our salespeople, rubs off on our marketing people. But confidence, I think, is a key, one of those key things that we need as leaders, and it's going to make us much better leaders. So learn how to work on your confidence and share that confidence with your employees, with your managers, and this is going to make you a better business owner. And finally, leaders are committed. You need to be committed to a business. Somebody that is passionate, somebody that wants to grow the business, somebody that wants to share. These are all traits of great leaders, I believe, that if we have them, we can become far more successful. I really like these couple of quotes, and when I did this presentation, I found some really interesting quotes. It's become the kind of leader that people will follow voluntary, even if you had no title or position. And really, I think it's saying is be a nice guy. You know, that's what you want to do. You want to be a nice person. You want people to follow you because you're a great human being. And I think this is the type of business owners I like working with. People that are passionate, people that are dedicated, people that are nice to people that work for them and treat them really well. And this is what I think makes a great leader. But here's another nice quote from Brian Tracy. The more credit you give away, the more will come back to you. And often you'll hear great leaders speaking. They'll say things like, if it wasn't for my people, we wouldn't have built a great business. And I think this is important that we understand that all of us, I think, couldn't have done it on our own. The more you help others, the more they will want to help you. And I think this is a key thing. And I've seen this so many times with business owners that treat their employees with respect and help them do things, maybe help them get an education or whatever it is. But it's those people that care that build great business and we admire. The other thing, and this sounds very obvious, but I think these are key things that we need if we expect people to follow us and to listen to us and to help us grow our business, is that leaders have a positive attitude. And think of any great leader that you work with. Think of leaders that you know of in small businesses that, you know, it's really that whole approach to life, that belief in themselves, that belief in human beings. These are the people that often become great business owners. So positive attitude is an important thing to have if you want to build a successful business and if you want to build a great leader. We also need to inspire. Just think of on a daily basis, if you've got employees, your job is spent inspiring these people, encouraging them, motivating them, inspiring them. And this is something, when you're working for somebody that is always edging you on, always encouraging you, always seeing that positive in you, you want to work hard for them. Great leaders are approachable and they're determined. And I think every single one of you, if you've been involved in development of a business, you know that this is what makes a great leader. You know that this is what makes a great business owner. Somebody with a great attitude, somebody that inspires, somebody that is approachable and determined to succeed. This is what it is. Management is doing the right things. Leadership is doing, management is doing things right, and leadership is doing the right things. And I agree with this 100%. I think if we had more leaders in the world today that were doing the right things, we'd have a much better world. Let me just summarize and finalize the tips, and then I'll answer a couple of questions. How do we become great leaders? First of all, you start with a clear vision, a very clear idea of the business that you want to build. That's number one. Number two is get your employees, get your advisors, get everybody behind you so that you ensure that it's not just you moving in the direction. Thirdly is lead by example. Show people how it's done. Create a model, create an example of what you want people to do. Humanize your relationship by spending time with your employees, trying to understand some of their challenges, some of their needs, what's going on in their lives. The more you know, the better. Inspire and encourage. On a regular basis, spend time inspiring people, encouraging them, and be approachable. I think great leaders are approachable. They're humble and they're approachable. Great leaders delegate. You and I must learn to delegate. If we don't delegate, we can't grow our business because we need to get people to do the jobs that we are doing so that we can focus on growing the business. Be a great coach and never give up. And I think, this is a great basis for being a great leader. And you've got to understand that if you're a great leader, there's a very good chance you will go on to build a great business, something that you're proud of, something that you love, something that you admire, and everybody looks at it and thinks, well, that's a great business. So these are the things that I encourage you to do. Go through this information, learn from it, build a very successful business in your community, and create jobs. And that's what I wish for every single one of you. That you build a business that you love, that your employees like working with you, that your customers like buying from you, and that you're doing good in this world. Those are the type of businesses we need to build that are honest, that are reliable, and do exactly what they say. This is my wish for every single one of you.